Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Melissa Irons with Irons Brothers Construction. Would love to see some of you say hello in the chat. And I am our 2022 Remodelers Council Chair. I, along with our Council's Vice Chair, Nathan Coons, welcome you to today's webinar. We are so excited that we are taking the time to go over safety, lead, renovate right, and all of the support that ERNwest through the Master Builders GRIP program gives to our members in navigating labor and industries workers' compensation claims. I am honored to be here today, and I think it's going to be really incredibly beneficial to all of you. We have the chat open and would love for you to participate as much as possible in the chat. We also have the Q&A option, so please type questions for our speakers as we go through the Q&A. And I am happy to present that I am a certified builder with BIW, CGR CAPS, and CGP. And so if any of you are having any of those certifications that are Remodelers Council members, please chime in on the chat and say hello and list your certification, please. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our Remodelers Council mission statement. The Remodelers Council is a fellowship of remodelers and associates that share their acquired industry knowledge and business practices. Promote the general welfare of their membership and sustain participation in the Master Builders through mentorship, education, and service. And you all should be able to see that mission statement there. Hi, Jennifer, how are you? Thanks for coming. And a big thank you to Jennifer Vanderbecken, our past chair of the Remodelers Council, for all of her leadership and collegiality in the Remodelers Council for 2021 and continuing on in 2022. And speaking of service from our mission statement, before we continue, I really wanted to give prominence to the Master Builders Association, King and Snohomish County's first female president, Sandy McAdams. Sandy, as you can see, led the charge at the Master Builders for many different things. Unfortunately, Sandy did pass away, sadly, December 28th at her home in Colfax. From the Professional Women in Building Council to her involvement here at the Remodelers Council, her legacy and her leadership will continue. She was also very heavily involved in the National Association of Home Builders and at the heart of the Remodelers Council. She is going to be greatly missed, and we want to send our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to Sandy's family and to any of you that were colleagues, friends, and extended family of Sandy's. She was also the named award giver. Yeah, I got thrown off track a little bit here. Sandy was the Sandy McAdams Professional Women in Building Award, was recognized for many, many years, and for all of the women that have stepped into her shoes and carried on her legacy. I welcome you to join me in thanking her and saying some words for her as we honor her. We have an amazing event that we are putting on today and throughout the whole entire year. And we are really hoping that they can all be in person. So let's stay safe, everyone, so that we can do that. On February 24th, we will be hosting our first of 4 coffee and chat events. Please mark your calendar to join us. This will be held for Remodelers Council members at the Master Builders Association Housing Center. Please join us and grab a cup of coffee before work. It's at 7 a.m. and chat with other remodelers. Reach out to Nicole for more information, and I look forward to seeing you there. On March 17th, we will have our next dinner, and we have a lineup of panelists talking about the future of our workforce. We're hoping this will be in person. Please stay tuned for updates as we get closer. On behalf of this year's Remodeling Excellence Awards Committee, the Rex Awards, we also invite you to participate in this year's 2020 Rex T-Rex Awards. As always, this is an annual event and an opportunity that we can appreciate your craftsmanship, your remodeling expertise, and your projects. The Rex Awards application will be available on the Master Builders Association website soon, and the deadline for entries will be March 2nd. We want you to start preparing your projects now and show us your amazing work so we can all celebrate together. And that event, again, Rex Awards, deadline for entries, March 2nd. Another event that we have, if you have not participated before, is the Remodel Homes Tour. We are so excited that this will again be virtual on October 22nd. It is an amazing way to show off your incredible projects, not only to one another in our council, but of course to market for new project clients. The application deadline for the Remodel Home Tour is July 27th. Our Remodelers Council dinners, and especially this webinar, is made possible by some amazing sponsors. Now that I'm done, we would like to have them say a few words, and I will introduce Craig Ball, the Business Development Manager of the Master Builders, who will be introducing each of today's sponsors.
Thank you, Melissa. We've got 2 great sponsors for this evening's event. First off, I'd like to introduce Jeff Chase with Velux. Some of you may recall that Velux has been a past sponsor, annual sponsor of our RC Council events. And I believe this is the 3rd year that we've been so fortunate to have their support. So welcome, Jeff Chase.
Hey there, thank you, Craig. And thank you very much to everyone in the Remodelers Council. Craig asked me to speak for a minute about what motivated us to get involved with the Remodelers Council and become a sponsor. And one of the reasons that immediately comes to mind is just that the people that attend the Remodelers Council and who belong to it, our trade partners, these are the ones that are making the purchases of the products, the higher tech products, the higher end products that we love to sell that bring way more value to our customers. So it's just a real pleasure to work with you. You know, selling 2x4 fixed curb mount skylights all day long, there's not a lot of fun doing that. So when we can add some value with our solar powered products or blinds or other things, it just makes it a lot easier and a lot more fun to work this job. So I want to thank you very much for that and for an incredible year in 2021. Even better than 2020 was. I mean, who would have thought we would have such amazing growth in our company during a pandemic? But that's exactly what happened. And that's despite some issues that we had with supply chain, as many of your suppliers had. With Velux, in particular, we had a little issue with with the global shortage of microprocessors that we use in our solar skylights and solar blinds, and we had to do some contracting of our product offering. And I want to announce that fortunately, much of that is behind us, and over the next month, we'll be ramping up our blinds again and the availability of our solar blinds. And we hope to be right back where we were before the supply chain issues. I also wanted to mention that the tax credits for solar products will remain at 26% for 2022. This is the same as it was in 2021. And these federal tax credits apply to our solar skylights, our solar blinds, solar night lights for sun tunnel tubular skylights. And it's just a fantastic deal for your owners because the tax credits not only apply to the product, to their cost for the products, but also for the labor to install them. So the whole install price of any Velux products in your customers' homes are going to be eligible for that solar federal tax credit. And we have solar powered skylights in both deck mount and curb mount, as most of you are already aware. So anyway, that program is still alive, at least for one more year. In 2023, it drops to 22%, but we'll see how things go. So again, thank you so much for all of your support over the last year and for the several years that I've been involved with the Remodelers Council. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Velux Skylights. Next up, we'd like to hear from Brian Wright, president of Hydroblock. Hydroblock is, they've been associated with the MBA for quite a few years, but they're new in terms of being a sponsor, and they've stepped up in a very big way. Not only are they a 2022 sponsor, annual sponsor for RC Council events, they will also be the presenting sponsor of our upcoming Rex Award. So we're very excited to have them on board. So Brian, are you there?
Yes. How are y'all doing?
I'd like to ask you a two-part question posed by leadership. So can you tell us what you're looking forward to in 2022 and what made you want to sponsor the Remodelers Council event?
Well, I mean, you know that I also have another company called Seattle Glass Block. We've been members for over 30 years. You know, we joined in the beginning just because of benefits, but then we find out how incredible the association is. And so now with Hydroblock, our new company is about 7 years ago, we also joined up. And for 22, I mean, we had an explosive year in 21. In 22, it's already starting up incredibly well. And we've just got great products to go ahead and respond to the market needs. And did you have any other questions?
I think that will do it. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your product?
Yeah, so if you can all see the screen, I've been doing shower systems for probably about 15 years representing manufacturers. There's a huge growing need for barrier-free, ADA, accessible, or whatever showers. And so for about 3 years, I worked on this new design for what we call low profile. And what it is a retrofittable barrier-free application that you can do without changing your floor structure, which is kind of a huge hat trick. So I'll just kind of play this. It's going to be very quick. I'm going to talk very quick, but you'll see that we've got, in this particular shot, we've taken the plywood out of the floor, and we have this floor lowering clip system that is basically kind of like a joist clip where you hang that on there. That supports your 2x4 structure that will support now the 3/4 plywood that you put back down. So our pans are all perfectly waterproof and sloped. You thin set them down. This new drain connection is kind of like a shark bite. You just press it together, use a little bit of our sealant around the perimeter and over the screws. When you do barrier free, it's a wet room, so you have to waterproof the whole bathroom floor. So you use our 1/4-inch board to flush up to it. The foam in the core is actually the waterproofing. So everything we're putting in is 100% waterproof. It is foam with a concrete surface. And so it simply cuts with a razor knife. You can adjust it to any size. All the wallboard is fastened to the walls with washers and screws. You apply more sealant around the perimeter. And then any two parts that go together, you put urethane between. So you're kind of welding it together and then putting an additional seal on the top and then simply cover over the washers. And then it's completely watertight at that point. So, you know, we do a ton of builder work through the large floor covering shops. And this has been an exciting new launch for us. And so we're excited to go ahead and share this, and people just need to know this tool is available. So
great.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Brian. And big thanks again to Hydroblock. And For any of you out there that are considering whether it be skylights or the application of Brian's product, really encourage you to contact them directly. If you'd like their contact information, you can certainly reach out to any one of us. And as always, we enjoy supporting those members that in turn help support our organization. So thank you very much, sponsors. Now back to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you to our sponsors, Hydroblock and Vlex. We're so thankful for you to be here. And I loved the video. It was very helpful for us to understand your products. So thank you. We have a fantastic webinar planned. I think I've said that more than once. I'd like to welcome John Meier and Michael Octave from ERNwest. With almost 30 years of experience with workers' comp, John is the president and CEO of Employee Resources Northwest, ERNwest, one of the most trusted workers' compensation companies in the state. John has served and serves on several committees, including L&I's Advisory Committee on Healthcare Innovation and Evaluation, and numerous subcommittees that focus on making Washington's workers' compensation system less expensive and less complex. Thank you, John. John completed his undergraduate education at the University of Puget Sound, majoring in psychology, good for working with L&I, completed his associate in risk management, professional designation, and the executive management program at the UW. Mike is the vice president of safety for ERNwest and has over 20 years of safety experience. He believes safety performance is critical and prides himself on finding practical and user-friendly solutions to help companies identify and mitigate the risk at work. Mike is an active member and former chapter president of the American Society of Safety Professionals in Puget Sound, and he holds a Master of Science in Safety Management from West Virginia University. He is a certified safety professional and holds his Construction Health and Safety Technician certification from the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. Wow, that was a mouthful. We appreciate that both of you are here. Welcome to John and Michael, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Melissa. Let me share my screen here, and we'll get started. All right. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. There are going to be a couple of documents, I think, in the chat that you all can download if you're interested. The first one is just a little bit more about the GRIP program that Master Builders offers. It's a great workers' compensation program that allows you to earn refunds of your workers' compensation premiums. It's one of the best ones in the state. This first document just talks a little bit about the benefits and what the program has returned over the last couple of years. And then more appropriate to the presentation that we're giving today, just a quick handout that's a 2-pager on sort of a safety program 101, what a program is, and 10 ways to help get your program started. So feel free to download those in the chat when they show up. And I guess with that, without further ado, we're going to talk safety. So the GRIP program, like I mentioned, is a workers' compensation refund program that's offered by Master Builders. And what we're going to focus on today is safety. So, in a workers' comp program, what most people talk about are claims and how to manage claims and ways to reduce the cost. I'm going to talk about costs really briefly, and then I'm going to pass the baton to Mike, who's going to go over safety and how GRIP really supports, how GRIP can really support remodelers in their safety programs and kind of getting them from just sort of basic safety program to one that really does work and really pays off in the long run. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. Melissa did a better job than we did in terms of introducing ourselves, so we're just going to go ahead and skip this slide. And what we're going to start out with here is just, how, part of how GRIP really helps your bottom line is workers' compensation and DOSH citations are really expensive. And, and I didn't come up with this myself, so I had to put a little cite in here, but really, employers that are serious about safety and injury management have a significant competitive advantage. And really what I mean by that is if you commit to having a real safety program, and what I mean by that is, you have a program that has roles, responsibilities, authority, accountability, you're going to end up having lower overhead costs than your competitors. and you're going to attract and retain better employees. And I can tell you, owning my own company, having lower overhead is great. But at the end of the day, it's your employees that make your company. And if you can attract the best employees and retain the best employees, that's going to help your company be more successful over time than just a low overhead. So I'm going to spend the next 5 to 6 minutes talking about overhead costs, which are workers' comp costs. And then I'm going to pass the baton to Mike, who's going to talk more about safety, so you can with ways that you can start accomplishing ways to reduce those overhead costs. So most of you know what an experience modification is, and it's really the ratio that determines how much you're going to pay in workers' comp premium over a year. And we've just come up with a sort of an example here that shows one risk class, the Department of Labor and Industries, and what it looks like if you have an experience mod of 0.63, which is really good, or an experience mod of 1, which is average, or an experience mod of 1.23, which is a little bit high. This is actually a real example that we looked at with a GRIP participant at one point. But what I want to talk about here is just how expensive workers' comp is, and that safety is really the most powerful way to keep your costs down. So let's just use this as an example and say you have 10 employees. And let's say you have 10 employees and one day you do get a call that your worst employee files a claim, because it's not going to be your best employee that files the claim. It is going to end up being the worst. And they're taken off of work. Now you, not being aware that allowing an employee to be off work is probably the single worst thing that you can do when dealing with a claim, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really have anything to bring him back. See you later. In that case, if you're an employer with 10 employees, you're going to end up paying about $20,000 a year more in workers' comp for a period of 3 to 4 years. So that's going to be an extra $60,000 to $80,000 over 3 to 4 years. Now, doing some basic math, let's just say your net margin, your net profit margin is 10%. Well, that means over that same period of time, so every year you're going to have to come up with $200,000 more in revenue to pay for that increase in workers' comp premium. And that's every year. So you can figure for that claim, you're going to end up paying, let's just call it $600,000 over 3 to 4 years. When you can prevent that claim up front is really where you get the benefit, where you can get the benefit from safety. And this is with the interior finish carpentry risk class. If you're a contractor or a sub that's doing something like framing or roofing, this can cost a whole lot more. But really, what does it have to do with safety? If you don't have claims, you achieve the lowest possible rate, which makes you as a company more competitive. You can bid at lower levels and you can retain better employees. So what's really cool about GRIP is it actually allows you to earn a refund on that workers' compensation premium. This is going to make you even more competitive. So on average, over the last 3 years, GRIP's average refund has been 39% of workers' compensation premium. And it's returned $63 million to participants over that 3-year period of time. What retro is, it's just a really huge bonus for having a good safety program. So let's use the same example from the previous slide. If you have an experience mod of 0.63, which is good, with 10 employees, ultimately you pay about $24,000 in workers' comp premium. And let's just say you got the average refund. That average refund would be about $9,200. Your total workers' comp premium for that whole year would be $15,000 a year. That's pretty good. So keep $15,000 a year in your mind. Now let's use the same example, but your experience mod is 1.23. It's the higher of the two. So you've had one really bad claim because you didn't really want to bring someone back to work who was your worst employee. Well, you're going to pay $43,000 a year in premium. And really, you're not going to get a refund because you've had a pretty bad claim. You might not even qualify for the program because we do have underwriting standards. You've got to be able to perform to be in the program. Well, the net difference there is almost $30,000 a year for a company with 10 employees. Think about this year after year after year. I mean, it's real money. Safety really does pay. You know, you hear those those comments and you see those signs around. Safety pays in workers' compensation and in your keeping your program and your company competitive. Remember the first slide that I really showed 3 slides ago. Employers that are serious about safety and injury management have a significant competitive advantage. Between you managing your claims and your safety program, this is how you can start to get some of that financial benefit. All right, so it's time for me to start transitioning this over to Mike for him to talk about safety, because it really is the place to start, like this slide shows. You know, when we're talking about how GRIP helps you and how you start saving money, well, it starts with a focus on safety. The rest of this, preventing time loss, claim strategies, all of those types of things. Whoop, let me get back to that. That's probably a different presentation altogether. So with that, we'll be happy to answer questions at the end of all of this. But right now, I'm going to say, hey, Mike, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, John, for that excellent introduction. My name is, again, Mike Octave, Vice President of Safety with Employer Resources. And tonight I'm going to touch on 2 things. One, I'm going to talk about why safety is critical to your business. I think John hit on a lot of the points. And number 2, what services the GRIP program provides its members and how we can help you with your safety journey. So why is safety critical to your business? I think John hit on a lot of the points that are here on the slide, but I do want to reiterate, it is a proactive approach to mitigating risk to your business. As you can see in that slide on the right-hand side, that's a recent roofing contractor, 3 roofing contractors. Some of you may have seen that. Were hit with a fall safety violation of $750,000 of combined violations. L&I is out there, is out there citing businesses, but that's not the only reason why you want to buy into safety. Also, it's very valuable for recruitment, employee retention, and public image. So the question becomes, I want you to sit and ask yourself, are you a vulnerable company or are you a proactive company? And so I'm going to share briefly some of the characteristics. And if you click on the vulnerable, and John, you can go to the next slide. So if you click on, so I want you to sit and think to yourselves as you're maybe sipping on some coffee, driving in the car, or maybe even have a margarita in your hand. As you look through the landscape over the next 6 months to a year, ask yourself, are you vulnerable or are you being proactive? And so some of the characteristics of a vulnerable company and some of the things that we look for as you're doing your self-assessment there tonight at home is, are you in a new industry? Are you new to the industry? Are you a new company in the construction world? Have you experienced fast growth? I think at the beginning of the presentation, I think both of the presenters mentioned that they've grown exponentially over the last year. That is a vulnerable situation. We get a lot of questions because companies outgrow their safety programs and they can get themselves into trouble. Have you had a shift in your business model? Are you bidding on things that may be outside of what you normally bid because of the business environment? Have you had do you have new team members, new supervisors that are new to your process? Do you have a safety person that may not have a really good grasp on what safety is? Maybe they don't have the training, the knowledge, the expertise. Or maybe you are in a high hazard industry such as roofing. Those are all vulnerabilities that can definitely lean into performance issues. And what we want to do is help you become more proactive and recognize those vulnerabilities so you can perform well within the GRIP program. So some of the things from a program standpoint, those are some of the operational vulnerabilities. I'm sorry, I didn't say that right. But anyways, I'm tongue-tied here. But there's also program vulnerable parts as well, such as having a mentality of safety is just go work it safely, or not planning through the process, or a lack of supervision or poor supervision, and no documentation. So those, if you checked any of those boxes as you're sitting here tonight, reach out to us, because the GRIP program, we really want to help the members with your program and get you on that track to being productive and proactive. So I want to shift gears here and talk a little bit of some of the services that we provide here at ERNwest. So as GRIP members, some of the things that we can provide your company and help support you is one is site visits or on a job site. This is one of our more popular offers that we assist businesses on. We can go out to your job site. We can meet with supervisors, your employees. We can drop in. Some companies want us to drop in unannounced to kind of get a really good sense of what is actually going on the project. Others see it as an opportunity to coach and learn, and they like to use the analogy of, checking under the hood every 5,000 miles. Companies want to see, how things are going. So if you want us to come out and do a walkthrough, GRIP members get one annual job walk. You can reach out to us, myself, and we can get that scheduled. We also offer our safety resource library. We have a robust list of resources that are on our website that you can download. We have templates for accident prevention programs. We have checklists for inspections. We have toolbox meetings that are in Spanish and English. We can do a comprehensive trend analysis and a review of your company. So let's just say over the last 5 years, you want to take a look at where the best bang for the buck is when it comes to risk in your business. We can take a look at the injury types. Maybe it's the length of employment. Maybe there's a certain risk classification you're concerned about, and we can dive into that. We also offer performance monitoring. On a quarterly basis, we review the group performance, and we identify companies who may have some challenges or struggles based on some internal KPIs, key performance indicators that we use. And so those companies that trigger, we are reaching out to those members and letting them know, hey, we're seeing this in your data, and is there a way that we can work with you and help you? That could look like leadership training for supervisors. It could be working and coaching with a safety mentor, or just going out and reviewing and doing a gap analysis of your program. We also have our injury emphasis program, which some of you may have already received a call. At ERNwest, we are really focused on falls from ladders, falls from elevated surfaces, scaffolding, and roofs. And if your company has a fall from an elevated surface, we'll be calling you, and we'll be reaching out to you to offer one, support, but also are there things that we can do to help prevent that from happening again? So some of you, like I said, may have received a call if you've had a fall recently. We also have incident response and support. Unfortunately, we've done several of these where there's been a serious accident, whether it's a fall from a roof or an employee getting their hand caught in a machine and they've, getting that amputated. Businesses, you guys, the business community has enough on their plate, and it's always nice to have a word of reason behind the scenes to help calm you down and kind of the noise that's going on regarding all the agencies that may be involved, the phone calls that you receive, and we can act as the backup for you to help answer questions you may have, to guide you through that process, whether it's bereavement services or dealing with L&I or dealing with just the hazards that are involved with that incident. Phone consultations, everything from OSHA 300 to fall protection questions. Give us a call, we can help you out. Training and webinars, we offer trainings on a monthly basis. Next month, we're doing a residential fall awareness webinar. We're also working with the American Ladder Institute. It's going to be doing a training in March. So those are always free to members. You can go online and check those out. L&I support. As we mentioned, if you have L&I come out due to an injury, a complaint, or maybe it's due to a drive-by, you can reach out to us. We're dealing currently right now, we're seeing an increase of that. And I'm dealing with 3 of them right now on my desk. But we can help review the case file for you, review the citation, and give you options on what the best means to move forward. Do you want to appeal the citation, or do you want to have at least have another set of eyes on it? And we can do that for you. We offer our weekly toolbox meetings. Those go out Monday morning. If you are not receiving those or on the list, let us know. We can get those set up, but those are in English and Spanish. And we also offer our newsletters that are monthly. And then finally, the GRIP Safety Committee. We offer, we meet on a quarterly basis. We'll be meeting next week. So if you're interested in meeting with the safety committee or joining the safety committee, it is a group of, the committee is dedicated to those people that may be placed in a role that they do not have the expertise or knowledge. So we try to provide a place for them to grow professionally and in the industry. And the last point I didn't point out is the contracted services. And I know we're going over a little bit here, but contracted services, we do have an in-house industrial hygienist. You know, if you have some air monitoring, we've done welding fumes, we've done silica. If you have a need regarding industrial hygiene issues at your business, reach out to us. Again, we have a certified industrial hygienist on staff. We can walk you through, talk a little bit about some of those resources. And if we don't have the information and you need more, if you need more safety-related information, we have contacts in the industry that we can reach out to get that over to you. So we really want to see you see the GRIP members perform, and we want to partner and be an asset to you. So don't be shy. Let us know how we can help, and I will turn it back over to you. Oh, and our contacts. I'm sorry. There's my contact information, and Ann Kerschel. She's our other contact who works with the group. So with that, I will turn it back over.
All right. Thanks, Mike. That's great. We really do. We want to support GRIP participants, so both the refund's good, and you as a company can kind of reap the financial benefits of that. With that, I think the questions are going to be done at the end of both presentations. I think we have a presentation coming up regarding lead-based paint, and I guess with that, I will be passing the baton back to Katrina. Maybe Katrina.
No, I think it's actually me, John. Melissa.
Oh, all right, Melissa. Then I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing, and you should be good to go.
So yes, absolutely, John, Michael. Thank you for that insightful safety information. I actually put a couple questions in the chat, and so if anyone else has some questions, please do put that in the Q&A, and we will go over that after our presentation from Jennifer Caraway. Jennifer Caraway is the Compliance and Enforcement Officer for the Washington Lead-Based Paint Program at the Washington Department of Commerce. She has worked for the Department of Commerce for 3.5 years. And prior to working at the Department of Commerce, she worked as a training instructor for 12 years, teaching asbestos, lead, I'm not sure what that word is, hazardous power, OSHA 10 and 30, and other general health and safety training. I'd like to welcome Jennifer here to talk about the lead-based paint Renovate Right program.
Thank you, Melissa. HAZWOPER, so it's Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. So
thank you.
No problem. I know, gotta love the acronyms. So hello, everyone. I will need to share my screen. Make sure that's working. There we go. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, it's not on your main screen though. It's your slide deck.
We're good now, right?
Yep.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. I know I love the in-person trainings and the talks because I gain my energy from everybody as we talk. So as Melissa said, I am the Compliance and Enforcement Officer for the Lead-Based Paint program here in Washington State. I'm kind of giving you guys a mixture. I know that there was health and safety was another option, so I included some information on awareness and health and safety in this, as well as our two programs that we have under our department, our state department, as well as who our federal counterparts are. And as any of you guys know, when it comes to any regulation that is federal and or state, and you got multiple agencies involved, sometimes there's conflicts in there. So I'm going to do my best to try to help you guys navigate towards that, and then answer questions as you have them. So I'm with the Department of Commerce. Our main goal is to strengthen communities. So we actually have it's like 104 different programs. We actually are in a lot of different areas. So the reason the LeadBased Paint program got put under the Department of Commerce rather than L&I is because we strengthen communities. Children who are lead poisoned, that's not a good thing for our society, especially as they grow up. So we want to try to prevent that, and that's how we can strengthen the communities. So anyway, for overview, I'm going to talk about what lead is, where we can find it, what the health effects are, who does what the regulations are, the differences in the lead regulations, who has to comply with my rules, why is this important? I'm going to go over the different disciplines and the certification requirements for the state, as well as EPA, because if you're going to be doing work on federal properties or in other states, that's important to know what our enforcement is, and then kind of what's coming up in the works. So what is lead? Lead is actually a naturally occurring mineral. We mine it. It's primarily found in the form of galena. It looks silver grayish. It's a lead sulfide compound, and it's the primary ore. There's actually a couple of different mines here in the United States. Washington actually has one up here north in Medellin Falls. And then there's a very large one that actually just started closing down out in Missouri. So we actually do mine it here in the United States. And why did we use lead? So in paints, the number one reason that we added lead to paint was durability. It lasts a long time. It adds brilliance to color, and it enhanced the drying of the paint. The type of lead that they actually used in paints was called white lead, and white lead had the property of drying faster, so they would actually have that mixed with like an oil-based, linseed oil type based paints, and so when they would paint it onto the walls, it would help it dry a little bit faster. It also prevents corrosion, retards mildew and mold growth. Lead is actually very easy to shape. It's very strong mechanically, but it's got a relatively low melting point, so that's why it's used in a lot of different things. And it also blocks sound and radiation. So there's sheetrock that can be lined with lead lining for radiation and also soundproof rooms. And it doesn't take a lot of lead to start preventing a lot of that. So lead-based paint. As funny as this looks with Dutch Boy, this was actually one of their advertisements that they actually had new flavored lead-based paints. So on there, they had, great flavor. They had pistachio, cotton candy, lemon, marshmallow. And it seems really nuts because you're like, really? Why would you add that? Well, lead itself actually has a sweet taste. That's actually why kids, once they taste lead-based paint, actually like it. And so they'll keep chewing on it because it has that sweeter taste. But then you have companies like this that actually add flavoring to it, which made that even more enticing, crazy enough, for children to eat it. So this is not a good thing. So when is it dangerous? Basically when it's ingested or inhaled. And so there's two different ways. Most kids will ingest it. Most adults will inhale it. However, we can also ingest it on the work site. If you bring your coffee in to the job site and you're drinking your coffee in the morning and there's lead dust on it, or you eat your sandwich inside of a containment or inside of a house that you're doing restoration work and not washing hands in between doing this work, you can ingest it. There was a compound that used to be added into gasoline called tetraethyl lead. It was the lead additive to prevent that anti-knock. And it actually was removed over the course of about 20 years, but that additive actually absorbed through the skin and could cause lead poisoning that way. But like I said, most children are poisoned by ingestion. So how long have we known about the health effects of lead? We've actually known about the health effects of lead since Egypt, ancient Egypt. The pharaohs and people of importance who wore that black makeup that was on their face, it was a lead sulfide compound that they would actually add into it. And they had even noted back then that like the slaves that would mine it, and then of course the royalty that would wear it, would actually end up with symptoms of lead poisoning, even though they didn't quite understand why, but it was still there. So where is lead found? Lead is found in paints and different types of materials like pewter, pottery. It's in the glazing. We have occupational take-homes. Kids are typically poisoned in the home. So either it's the home that is causing the exposure because of its dilapidated housing, loose flaky peely paint, or mom or dad brought it home with them back from the work site. Toys, playground equipment, particularly toys we'll go over in a little bit. There's home remedies, cosmetics, soil, water, candy. So there's a lot of different areas that you can actually find lead. And what is our number one use of lead today? Storage batteries. So the mine that I mentioned over in Missouri, they actually have a lead smelter in Herculaneum, Missouri. And what they do is they recycle a lot of the lead and they turn it back into the storage battery. So you get lead acid batteries from that. The number 2 and 3 uses of lead are ammunition and then paints and coatings. So it's still prevalent out there. So what are we concerned about? We're concerned about houses built prior to 1978. Any house that has paint that was built prior to 1978 is considered presumed lead-based paint. The burden of proof to show that it's not lead-based paint is on the contractor. It's not for me to decide. It's not the homeowner. If the homeowner has documentation, and I'll discuss that, how you can use that, but it is automatically assumed that there's lead-based paint on there until you can prove otherwise. So what is lead-based paint? Lead-based paint is, excuse me, EPA, HUD, and Washington Department of Commerce actually have the same definitions of lead-based paint. It's 0.5% lead by weight, 1 milligram per centimeter squared, or 5,000 parts per million. So the 0.5% lead by weight and 5,000 parts per million are actually interchangeable. So 1% equals 10,000 parts per million. So anything equal to or greater than 0.5% or 5,000 parts per million is lead-based paint. The 1 milligram per centimeter squared is typically from XRF testing. The little window is about a centimeter squared, or you can get that weight or that measurement if you give them the exact measurements of the paint strip sample that was taken. So any home that was built prior to 1940 has about a 90% chance of containing lead-based paint. It was very, very prevalent in the, even though we've known about the health effects, it was still actively used. What we found though is that about 1960, it dropped dramatically. So there was no rules against using lead-based paint, but in about 1960, there's a drop, and it's about 25% of the homes you'll come across will contain lead. It's because the painting industry started seeing the trend of moving away from lead-based paints. There was the development of latex paints, so other alternatives. So overall, the homes started having less and less. One of the trainers actually did a huge research on this, and they said even in the 70s, it was actually less than 10% is what they found. So when you get a house around that time frame of 78, it's a pretty good chance it probably doesn't have it. But if it's an old home, turn of the century, you've got a very good chance it probably is lead-based paint. So Consumer Product Safety Commission in 1978, it banned lead-based paint in certain products. It didn't get rid of lead altogether, but it reduced the amount of lead concentration down to less than 600 parts per million, or 0.6% lead by weight, but only for residential structures, public buildings, recreational areas, toys, and playground equipment. This did not restrict any use, or any restrictions were on industrial paints or commercial buildings or anything like that. So it is entirely possible to still paint an industrial building with lead-based paint today without the restrictions other than worker safety. But this was all they're focused on was consumer products. And then in 2010, they lowered it again, now to less than 90 parts per million or less than 0.009%. So industrial uses, so there's lots of other uses of lead. This is the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. Just a prime example of how lead-based paint is still used. There's over 300,000 bridges in the US that still have lead-based paint on them. Surprisingly, Golden Gate is not one of those. But the Bay Bridge still does. Like I said, leaded gasolines, that was a big decline over about 20 years. So it was about 1976 was when EPA started stepping in and pushing for the reduction of leaded gasolines. And then it kind of, for consumer use, basically went away about 1994, 95. You can still find leaded gasolines. It's still in the aviation industry. It's still for farm equipment. NASCAR, I heard at one point they were going to try to get rid of it for NASCAR. I'm not sure if they actually did. But what was interesting was that there was a almost direct correlation when the leaded gasoline became less and less available. It actually dropped the overall US population blood lead levels as well. Lead in drinking water. So there's the current administration actually is trying to propose to remove and replace all the leaded pipes in the United States. Not sure how that's going to go, but that's kind of their focus for right now. For drinking water, you've got the Safe Drinking Water Act. So lead is supposed to be less than 15 parts per billion. All public water suppliers in the US currently have to meet that standard. But as we all know, in Flint, Michigan, that didn't happen. And so that kind of put lead in drinking water back into the limelight of what's going on with our drinking water and people starting to pay more attention to what was coming out from their suppliers. Occupational uses of lead. You still have leaded crystal. If you've ever heard leaded crystal, it has this amazing sound when you clink it. Lead smelting, it's very toxic to people as well as the environment. There's scraping paint, painting, remodeling, restoration, battery recycling. There's all different types of occupational uses of lead and where you're going to come across it. Hobbies, hunting, target shooting, casting bullets, making fishing sinkers. I know lots of people who've taken the lead tire weights, even though those are fewer availability, and they would melt them down and create lead sinkers, or they would cast the 50 caliber bullets for like Civil War reenactments. Seeing glass, the cane that holds the glass itself is actually lead because it's very soft, it's malleable, and there's also pottery in the glazing. Toys, there was a gigantic recall in toys about 15 years ago. Canada also had a big one, and huge recall. It wasn't just even in the paint, it actually was in the plastics itself. And so you can see on the right side an XRF Niton that's testing toys for lead. And then other sources, pewter, it can be in mixed products, canned goods. So canned goods in 96, I believe it was, the US restricted the lead in solder for consumer goods like food. But that doesn't mean that other countries have done that. So if we import foods from other countries, it is entirely possible there could be lead in that solder. Candies, I've seen several different countries where they'll either put lead in the candy or they'll have the wrapper will be kind of made with lead because it's a preservative. And then home remedies. So there's home remedies, kind of everybody's got their own. Different groups like the Hmong community, they have a red powder that they would give for fevers or rashes, and it would contain lead. The Azarcon or Greta, Azarcon, I think it was 95% lead, and then Greta is like 57% lead. And what they would do is they would actually mix it up with juice and give it to a child when their tummy was upset or they had diarrhea. The Arab community has kohl. It's a powder that they can add to the cosmetic eye makeup. It's also applied for skin infections into the navel of newborn children to prevent infection. And then you have the Asian Indian community that's got, several different types of leaded powders, or they create gripe water to help with stomach aches. Unfortunately, that ends up poisoning people, particularly children. But a child who has severe diarrhea, they wouldn't think that that would be a bad thing, because lead actually causes constipation. And so it would work, but not realizing all of the other health effects that we've caused with that. Cosmetics, US cosmetics typically do not contain lead. It's makeup that could be imported. Grecian hair formula for men. So if you're going from, gray to black, typically those dyes don't have any sort of lead acetate in it. It's the gradual or the progressive hair dyes that can contain lead acetate. So Grecian hair formula for men, I haven't checked it in the last 2 years, but they used to have a side warning. This is caution, contains lead acetate. That was on it. So health effects. So lead is one of those things that we don't realize it's actually affecting us until it's already too late. The person on the left is a painter. He's 60 years old, and you can see he's got wrist drop. So what lead does is actually it prevents the nerve's ability to send and receive messages. So the person ends up with permanent injuries in their wrists and their feet from nerve damage because of the lead. In the middle is an X-ray of a 4-year-old boy. The body can't distinguish between lead and calcium and other materials, and so the body will deposit, especially if the person is deprived in good nutrition, it'll deposit lead just like it would calcium. And so lead blocks radiation, and so that's why you can't see part of his hand, the bones, because the lead is there. The person on the right, in addition to severe gingivitis from poor dental hygiene, but they also have lead poisoning. So what we would have seen if this is a colored picture is a blue line. It's a lead sulfide that kind of forms on the gums. And so that person is severely lead poisoned. So lead can actually affect every single part of your body. Affects the brain, affects speech and learning disabilities, children's development, the nervous system, digestive system, kidneys, heart. A lot of that's permanent. Once it's done, it's done. High blood pressure, anemia typically are reversible, but especially with children, once the damage is done, especially when they're little, you don't know that it was done until much later on. And by then you can't reverse that. So it's really important to make sure that you use lead safe work practices, not only for the people that you're doing the work for, but also your own family. So you don't want to take this home. So the lead that stays in our body is called our lead body burden. Lead can be stored in the bones and the teeth up to 30 years or more. Over time, it will come out. On average, it will take about 5 to 19 years for half of the lead that's already stored in the body to come out. The more the body's stressed, like pregnancy, it will actually come out further. But any lead that actually stays in our body during that time is called our body burden. And there's no way to test that. All we can do is do blood testing to determine how much lead is currently in the body. So females are particularly susceptible to lead poisoning. A woman can pass on to her unborn fetus lead that she was exposed to as a child. So it can be stored in the bones and the teeth up to 30 years. You put the body under stress, and the body It's like, oh, we need to release calcium. Well, then it releases the lead too, because again, it doesn't see the difference of it. And so lead poisoning in a woman can decrease the sex drive, decrease fertility, cause abnormal menstrual cycles, cause premature births, or even stillbirths. For men, you can get low sperm counts, low motility, abnormally shape or size of the sperm, problems having erections, loss of interest in sex, impotence, or you can actually cause a miscarriage in your female partner. So what I used to say, I used to teach for 12 years. I used to tell all the men in my class, it'll take the lead out of your pencil. So the important thing is making sure you wash your hands and you're really careful with how you work. And you should be that way anyway with anything that you work with, but definitely lead. Children are particularly high at risk, especially toddlers. So because toddlers, if you've ever been around a toddler, they put everything in their mouth. They put their hands, they put the toys, they put, because that's how they discover the world. They taste it, they touch it, and everything goes there. And so what happens is it doesn't take much to start poisoning a child. And so they showed, medical research showed that lead can decrease a child's intelligence at lead levels as low as 5 micrograms per deciliter, which isn't a whole lot. A microgram, I have one of the handouts, it's kind of showing you the difference of what the different, what all the different units are. And so a microgram is a millionth of a gram. A gram is about one of those little sweet and low packets of sugar. It's not that much. And then a deciliter, if you look at like a liter of Coke, cut it into 10 pieces, that's a deciliter. So the CDC actually lowered the reference level down to 5 micrograms per deciliter because they started seeing this. The Department of Health will start investigating children who are lead poisoned whenever they're over like 15 or 20 micrograms per deciliter. But low levels can start causing lower IQs, speech and language problems, coordination problems, poor muscle and bone growth, hearing problems, learning disabilities, behavioral problems. And if any of you have had children, children learn at very different rates. You got 3 kids, they're all going to learn to read at different levels. They're all going to learn how to do math at different times. They're all going to, at different ages, they're all going to learn these major steps at different levels. So a lot of times you don't know how much of that was lead or how much of that is them. So the key here is to not be lead. We want to prevent that. So why is it so scary? Like I said, a little packet of sugar, that's about 1 gram. So if 1 packet of sugar was concentrated, it was lead dust, 1 package would be enough to contaminate a 2 to 3 bedroom house. So it wouldn't take much. Lead dust is actually a little sticky. And so contractors and even homeowners, if you just think, well, I'll just clean it up at the end. Well, the problem is that you track it everywhere because it's sticky. It can stick to the bottoms of your shoes and you just kind of track it all over the home. So even though you may have been working in the kitchen or you may be working in the bathroom, you could have tracked that all over the house, depending on where you went with that. The lead dust hazard levels and the clearance levels actually changed. Federally, they changed in 2020 and 2021. Washington Department of Commerce, we updated ours and became effective. It was passed October 29th, 2021, and then became effective 30 days later. So how much lead do we absorb? So children and pregnant women are the most at risk when it comes to the lead dust. And again, it's that hand to mouth. So women and children, or pregnant women and children, will absorb up to 50%, sometimes more, of the lead that they take into their body. So a child who's been crawling around on the ground and there's lead dust and he puts his fist in his mouth or he puts his toy in his mouth and swallows that, about 50% of that's going to be absorbed into the body. Whereas the average adult, it's about 10 to 15%, depending on the level of nutrition and just kind of in general how they take things. Blood testing, I mentioned that before. There's 2 types of blood tests. For children and most general public, we just look at the blood lead level, BLL. It's the most accurate. but it's only looking at recent exposures. So we can't look at what you were exposed to 20 years ago. All we can look at is what were you exposed to in the last few weeks. There's also the zinc protoporphyrin test that's looking at the lead absorption levels over the last few months, but that can be skewed depending on your diet, if you're anemic. There's some other factors like handling of the material of the blood sample can actually affect that. OSHA, or LNI in our case, requires both of those. Anytime a worker is exposed over the action level, there's a whole formula on that one. But with children, they'll start testing them. WIC and some of the other federal program money programs have actually started suggesting testing the children at younger levels, so at age 1 or 3 or 4, so that they can start catching this early, so we can start preventing long-term lead poisoning. But prevention is a key, and good nutrition. So having good nutrition, eating foods high in iron and calcium helps prevent that. If the body is full of good nutrients, iron, calcium, magnesium, all of that, the body is less likely to absorb the lead. When the body is deprived of iron and calcium, the body will tend to absorb it more. So it helps displace the lead from the blood and the tissues when you start eating good, healthy, nutritious food. But prevention is the key. So who does what? There is 2 main federal agencies who enforce lead regulations, and then there's 2 main state programs that do the same. So the EPA is one that I'm going to talk about. We are authorized by EPA to enforce our program, to administer our program here in Washington State. Department of Housing and Urban Development, that's a federal program. They look at excuse me, federally owned and assisted housing. The Department of Ecology, they're concerned. They've got waterways that they have to look at. They also look at waste management. So they are involved, not as directly as LNI and Commerce are, but they're definitely there. LNI, of course, enforces the worker safety program here. And then CDC. So CDC will also put out information on lead poisoning. So who can do what? So this is a nice little chart that I put together because a lot of people like pretty little charts to be able to look at because it makes sense. So there's 2 programs which I'm going to go over. There's the lead abatement program. It's called LeadBased Paint activities. So that includes abatement, inspections, risk assessments, clearance inspections. And then there's the second program, which is the Renovator program. That's the RRP. So you've got worker supervisor, they can do abatements. Supervisor can also write abatement plans. You got inspectors, risk assessors who can test for lead-based paint. Risk assessors can do can do risk assessments, and then inspector, risk assessor, and the dust sampling technician can do clearances. And then a certified renovator is a separate certification. So even those doing lead abatement also still have to comply with this as well. And there's also the lead and construction standard. So I can't enforce the worker safety stuff, even though I can talk about it, I have knowledge, but that's not our area. Our area is the lead renovation, repair, and painting program, as well as the lead abatement program. So we all know now from 1978, we had the Consumer Product Safety Commission was put into effect, and that lowered the amount of lead in paint, but there was nothing else done. There was no talk about anything else. There was a general industry standard under OSHA, but it wasn't until 1992 that the Residential Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act came out, also known as Title 10. And it was Congress passed this into law, and this law required that the 3 federal entities, OSHA, HUD, and EPA, establish rules while working with lead. I was told that this all came out because President Bush at the time, the White House was getting renovated, and his dog Millie got lead poisoned. And so if the dog could get poisoned, maybe children could get poisoned. And so they started investigating. They did a whole study, and they found under Title 10 that there were about 3 million children in the United States that were currently lead poisoned. Most of them lived in federally owned or federally assisted housing. And people who worked in those areas, either as contractors or landlords or property managers, also needed to have knowledge about lead. So OSHA, as you guys all know, is the Occupational Safety and Health Act, or administration, if we're looking at the regulation. There's 2 lead regulations. There's the general construction one, the general industry standard. But the one that I always think of, especially with our line of work, is the lead and construction standard. And that came out in 1993. In Washington State Department of Labor and Industries is who enforces that and administers that program. They have proposed changes. Those have been put on hold, but they did propose changing their lead and construction standard to be something much more strict than what it currently is. But because of COVID, things shifted. But that is something that's still out there. If you're interested, you'll have my email. I can always send you the link for that on that proposed change. The Department of Housing and Urban Development. So this is an agency that's responsible for federally owned, federally assisted housing. They created these HUD guidelines. It showed how people should work with lead, how the community could be protected from lead, how to do inspections, how to do risk assessments, how to do abatements. But it didn't address renovations or repairs or remodels or anything like that. So these were the most protective at the time. And so under Title 10, EPA and OSHA had to be as protective as them. So EPA actually took in a lot of the HUD guidelines when it came to their establishing their training. HUD and EPA also did another joint thing under Title 10, which is the lead disclosure. So it's also called the 1018 because it's Section 1018 out of Title 10. And it requires to inform the seller or somebody who's leasing any information disclosing if they know about any known lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. And so they talk about target housing. So target housing is any pre-1978 property, residential properties. They said there's an exception for housing for elderly or people with disabilities unless a child under the age of 6 resides there. These would be housing that was specifically built and designed for the elderly. So, the age 55 or 65 plus, or people with disabilities, as long as children under the age of 6 are not there. If you have an adult family home, so where elderly just happen to be just because there's no children under the age of 6, the rule still applies because they can sell that house next year and a family can move into it. The 0-bedroom dwellings, that was something recently that they gave another exemption on. So 0-bedroom dwellings was kind of, since 92, always required. You couldn't, they were exempted because federally owned and assisted housing, you would not rent a property that didn't have a bedroom for a child. However, we all know, especially with the housing market the way it is, families live in 0-bedroom dwelling units. They live in motels. They live in, studio apartments. So if there's a child under the age of 6, the rule applies. The Environmental Protection Agency, they have their lead-based paint poisoning prevention in residential and child-occupied facilities. And basically any renovation that was done on pre-78 houses for compensation or the sale or lease of target housing, EPA gets involved. And EPA here actually still does an 18 inspection. So the lead renovation, repair, and painting program, RRP, this came out in 2008. This is when it was proposed. It became effective 2010. So this has been in effect now for almost 12 years. It is in all 50 states. It affects everyone who works on pre-1978 properties, residential properties, or child-occupied facilities. So a child-occupied facility is anywhere where a child's under the age of 6. So these would be preschools, daycares, even elementary schools, and even in-home daycares. And the RRP, EPA authorized 14 states in a tribe to administer their own program, Washington being one of them. So with EPA, before you can bid or offer work for compensation, you have to be firm certified, renovator certified. And everybody kind of gets hung up on the whole painting, like, well, I'm not painting lead paint, or I'm not actually removing lead paint. It doesn't matter. Regardless of lead-based paint is there, you have to be firm certified to offer, to bid on that. And then once you get the job, a certified renovator has to be assigned to the project. So that's EPA. So that would be if you work in like Idaho, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, we have our own programs. So in Washington State, we adopted our own, we were authorized in 2011 to administer the renovation, repair, and painting rule. The lead-based paint activities rule, we actually were authorized in 2004 to administer that. So in Washington State, before you can offer or bid a project, a pre-78 residential or child-occupied facility, your firm needs to be certified with Commerce, not EPA, with Commerce. It's $25 to register. It's a 5-year certification, super easy. The fines can go up, and I'll go over that, but the fines can go up to $10,000. 25 bucks is nothing. But you also have to have at least one certified renovator on staff if you're going to do the work. So there, like I said, there's 2 different programs. There's the renovation, repair, and painting, and then there's the lead-based paint activities program. So there's differences in the training, the certification, what type of information has to be given out to the owners. If it's HUD or EPA, Commerce or HUD, there's the minimum levels of exemption are changed, the de minimis levels. There's prohibited activities, so you can't burn it off, you can't torch it off, you can't, grind it off without HEPA filters. I mean, so there's prohibited activities. If it's a HUD project, it requires third-party clearance. If it's not a HUD project, you can do, the renovator can actually do a cleaning verification. And then disposal of waste. And one of the pamphlets or one of the documents I have for you guys, it actually talks about the waste requirements under the program. So if it's residential, I think up to a quadplex, it is exempt from the lead-based testing. It can actually go out as construction debris. If it is commercial, so like an apartment complex and you're doing that work, or let's say a daycare like kinder care, or if you're just going to do, I don't know, demolish a bunch of office buildings, now you have to test for the lead before you dispose of it because it's not exempt anymore. So under the RRP, you've got renovators, dust sampling technicians. Your firm certification is valid for 5 years. Your individual certification is valid for 5 years. For RRP individual certification, it's a 1-day class. It's 8 hours and it's good for 5 years. Under the lead-based paint activities courses, you got worker supervisor, inspector, risk assessor. The firm and the individual certifications are only valid for 3 years. And for supervisor, inspector, and risk assessor, there's a state exam that's also required. And that would be only for lead abatement projects or HUD projects that require that particular certification. In one of the handouts that I sent out, I have a lead abatement versus lead renovation. So in a nutshell, a renovation Renovation, repair, and painting type of project would be asbestos abatement, mold abatement, a restoration, painting, a remodel, a repair, window replacement, because you want to upgrade your windows to something that's more, energy efficient. Those are all renovation, repair, and painting programs. So whether or not lead is present, it would be an RRP type of project. So what that happens is the certified renovator has to test those components that are coming out are going to be disturbed to determine if there's lead-based paint. Under the abatement side, the abatement means that I'm specifically going in there to reduce or eliminate lead hazards. So usually it's because a child is lead poisoned, or there was a lead hazard of some sort, or it was a federally funded project that's requiring that particular extra certification. So what I've been seeing is the big mix-up is, I have siding and it has lead-based paint. I have to be abatement certified. No, you don't. What was the purpose of the project? The purpose was to remove the siding. That's an RRP project. That's not lead abatement. So those of you that are familiar with asbestos abatement, you're just removing the asbestos. It's not like that for lead. Lead, it has to be the purpose. It's the intent. So most things, probably 95% of projects, are going to be RRP, even if there's lead present. Washington State certification. So firm certification, hands down, is the #1 violation I have seen over the years I've been here. We've had people who are registered with EPA, or they're registered in Oregon, or they're not registered at all. They just took the class. And hands down, it is by far our biggest violation. We do reciprocity between different states and EPA. It's $25 to register. So really important. So who has to comply with the RRP rule? So general contractors, even if you sub out everything to someone else, that's like an abatement company or a restoration company or whoever it is, as a general, since you're holding the contract, you're receiving compensation for the program or for the project, you also have to be firm certified, which means in Washington, you at least need one person who is also a certified renovator. Specialty trades, so painters, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, all of those have a potential of cutting into walls. So the moment you start cutting into your walls, we're doing window replacements, doing major repairs, the RRP rule is going to apply. Property managers and landlords, if they're going to be doing their own work in-house, they also need to be certified. This is the beautiful Renovate Right pamphlet. This came out, they actually redid this in 2011. And this is a project, or this is a pamphlet that actually has to be given to a homeowner or to the adult representative of a child-occupied facility before work begins if there's presumed lead-based paint or it's been tested and there is currently lead-based paint. So this one's another one. I've seen where the pamphlet was given, but a lot of times the signature, there's a signature requirement with that. The records are missing. So under here, this is our enforcement. I put all the stars in the order in which I've seen the biggest violations. So no firm certification, #1 violation, hands down. In Region 10 EPA, so that's Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. That is also our #1 violation for EPA, but Washington also our #1 violation. Region 10 EPA tends to be a little bit more strict than other regions. So if you've moved in from other regions, we tend to be a little bit more restrictive here. We've also seen violations for no active renovator. So they've just kind of forgotten, because it's only good for 5 years. So if you don't renew it before you expire, you're going to have to take the initial class again. And for anybody who needs classes, we actually have on our website, so that one that should also be out there, commerce.wa.gov/lead. You can actually click on the training and certification, and there's a calendar that has our updated and current training offered by the different training providers who are accredited by us. Another violation we've seen is not providing the pamphlets. Work practices would probably be number 3 violation, where they're not putting down the containment, not sealing off areas and allowing dust or debris to escape the work area. Number 2 violation is work record keeping. So I went through 9 different cities last year, and in addition to just emails too, is pulling records. So what I wanted to see is, let me see the last 6 to 12 months of pre-78 projects that you guys have done on residential or child occupied, and let me see all your records. And I don't even think half had them. So what I want to do is try to help you before you get to that point of getting a letter from me or a letter from EPA and getting you guys into compliance. So even if you're firm certified or you have your individual renovators, you should be keeping records. And if your renovators are not communicating this with you as an owner, that's a problem. And so we need to start getting to the bottom of that. And if you have questions, I am more than happy to help answer that. Our team, we've got 4 people who are for the lead program. All of us will answer questions if you guys have those. Enforcement penalties in Washington, we can go up to $10,000 per violation per day. EPA now can go up to over $41,000 per violation per day. And in Washington, we have the ability to refer a case over to EPA, and then they can follow up with it as well. So our goal is not to put you out of business. We don't want people to be out of business. What we want is compliance, because we want to make sure that we prevent children from getting lead poison, from families from getting lead poison, from you poisoning your own families. And it seems like unless there's that potential of a penalty, not everybody complies. It's almost like you need that. So like I said, I don't want to sit there and go up to a $10,000 penalty. I'm willing to work with people. And that's why I really encourage contractors, property management companies, landlords to please call. I love phone calls. I love questions. And I love to be able to guide people onto the right path. So then you're not going to get in trouble with me. You're not going to get in trouble with EPA. I can see that you're actually trying, and you're trying to do the good thing. And I have faith that the contractors, especially you guys being part of this organization, you already are passionate about your job. So I have all the faith that you're already probably doing all of this. I just want to make sure that all your records are in check and that your certifications are still current. So in the works, there's been a lot of communication with agencies, between state agencies. COVID was actually one of the biggest kickers of why we were able to communicate, because we were restricted going out into the public. And so I had to rely on LNI, the Clean Air Boards, the ecology, EPA, all different types of agencies. I've even had wastewater agencies call me up because they're like, hey, I just got a call about lead in a storm drain. So there is a lot of communication with the agencies. LNI is starting to become familiar with this. We are desperately working on online applications, really hoping that gets there, because right now, unfortunately, we are like dark ages, snail mail with this. Be checker money order for that. We're looking at public access for verification on our website. I update about once a month all the current firms that are on there. We're going to be eventually publishing the people who are out of compliance or who have suspended certifications on our website. So that's come down the works. As I mentioned before, EPA reduced their dust and clearance levels, and LNI had that proposed change, but again, it's been put on hold. And then here's some resources that we have. Actually, one of the trainers here, NICA Safety, they actually put together a whole YouTube channel on how to do proper containment. But the key is getting that certification. I pull permits. I get tips and complaints all the time. So does my counterpart, Jane. We we're out there, we hear this stuff. People aren't ignorant about lead, so they actually call. And then also driving through neighborhoods, I notice things. You know, I live in Washington too, and so I kind of take note of addresses and look it up. And if I don't see that you're certified, you're going to be getting a phone call or an email from me, and I'm going to be asking for records. So the goal is try to get you into compliance before I end up finding you out in the field. Any questions you can put? I see there's a few probably up there. And then here's my contact information. And Melissa, back to you.
So Jennifer, yes, there are questions, but due to the timing of our current presentation, we are going to send you the questions in email. And then if there are any further questions anyone has, please send them to either the chat before we turn off the Zoom, or you can email them to myself or Nicole at the Master Builders, and we will send them over to Jennifer to get answered for our members.
Okay, individual and the firm, basically it's like having a vehicle registered versus a driver's license. You need both in order to legally drive a vehicle. So you need the individual and the firm. Was Katrina's question, or that she put in there too.
So Jennifer, can you hear me? I'm going to send you the rest of the questions.
Okay.
And if anyone else has questions that they'd like to send, I will email them to you or Nicole from the Master Builders. What a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for the information. I echo what some of the other chairs of our Remodelers Council in the past said in the chat. You make, well, I like to say we can make safety sexy, but you make lead fun. So thank you so much. And we are so appreciative, again, to our sponsors, Velux and Hydroblock. And I would love for you to join us at our next Remodelers dinner meeting. Fingers crossed that it's going to be in person, March 17th. Wear your green. We're going to have a fantastic panel presentation with some of our current workforce development initiatives and the workforce development education that's available as we are training our future workforce. And just to plug here, I don't know if it says on this slide, but don't miss the Professional Women in Building February lunch. It's February 15th. It's at the Master Builders, and it features John Kapler, who is a longtime member of the Master Builders. He's going to discuss the relationship of architect and builders in preserving the feel and the look of our residential communities, as well as his son, Ben, who will be showcasing some 3D innovations for home builders. Please do visit the Master Builders website for more information on the current Remodelers Council and all our future events that are happening. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.